I'll tell you something. If you're thinking of starting a somatic practice in the new year, you have to watch this video. Because the truth is, although somatic practices are so powerful, and many of them have been around since indigenous times, there is still a lot of people coming into the somatic practicing industry with really very limited knowledge of what can happen when you start going into your body without the right space, the right resiliency, the right flexibility. Here's the thing. A lot of what the somatic exercises do is they release freeze energy. So this energy that has been there, dampening down all of that activation that's underneath. This is a protection mode for your body. When the activation is too high, it either goes completely into dissociation, which is the flop slash dorsal vagal, or it goes into freeze, which means the activation goes up, but then there is this dorsal energy on top, which is pushing it down to keep it contained so it doesn't go way too much. But then the downside of it is that you have a nervous system with a lot of activating energy underneath that is being pushed down. So it almost feels like this pot that is boiling and it has the lid off with no release. So what a lot of these somatic exercises do is remove that lid without letting out the steam little by little. So you can imagine the big explosion that's right underneath if you don't have the space to hold it. So in somatic experiencing, which is the modality of somatic practices that I follow, that I was trained in, what we like to do is do this thawing, do this removal of freeze energy little by little. We call that titration. Because as you remove some of that energy, that activation is going to come up. And you want to be able to allow that activation to complete this curve so it comes back down before you release more activation. Otherwise, it's going to keep going up, going up, going up. And in those cases where that activation does go up, we then pendulate, which means we bring ourselves back to a place in our body that has been researched at the beginning of the session so that you're not in a place of total dysregulation, which is when your autonomic nervous system comes in. In a somatic experiencing session, we always stay within the window of tolerance. So here's the thing. Removing freeze energy is actually not a bad thing. That is what you want to do. Is start bringing a little bit of presence into your body. Start reconnecting again with what your body needs, what your body wants, so that you can then complete the activation that's underneath. But if your nervous system does not have space for it, and you don't do it in a titrated, graduated pace in which allow you to hold that little activation that comes up, you run the risk of re-traumatizing yourself. Now, when it comes to somatic experiencing, that school has been around for 30 years, but other somatic practices have been around since indigenous time. I mean, the haka by the Maori people is one of the most beautiful representations I've ever seen of fight or flight energy being channeled into agency and power. The practice of savasana at the end of yoga is such a beautiful representation of what the power of stillness and flow energy look like. And then you have other practices in the modern world, like EMDR is 40 years old. Like I say, somatic experiencing is 30 years old. Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine was published 30 years ago. The Body Keeps the Score was actually published a decade ago. So it's not new. But as people understand how powerful is somatic practices, somatic experiencing, more and more people want to be part of this knowledge of this movement. But not everyone has the training to do it in a way that will be safe for you and for your nervous system. So always look for someone that has the certification as somatic experiencing practitioner. That tells you that they did 3 years worth of studying. They completed a number of supervision hours, and they're going to help you release all of that freeze energy, complete all of those activations in a way that's safe for you and for your nervous system. My goal for 2025 is to help as many chicas to get in contact with somatic experiencing and actually experience what it can do in their lives. So for the first time ever, for the first week of January, I'm going to be offering a huge discount for anyone that wants to try it in a one-on-one session with me. Check out the you know what, and let's start the year reconnecting your body to agency and joy.